Hare Krishna, peace and humble obeisances, Lord Prabhupada. So we'll resume our discussion on the 11th chapter of Bhagavad-gita from verse 48. Na veda yagya dhayane na dane na cha kriyabhi na tapo birugrahe evam rupa sakyaham nirloke drashtum tvadanye na kuru pravira. O best of the Kuru warriors, no one before you has ever seen this universal form of mine, for neither by studying the Vedas, nor by performing sacrifices, nor by charity, nor by pious activities, nor by severe penances, can I be seen in this form in the material world. So, when Krishna uses these phrases, or in the scriptures, when we see this negation of different efforts, then there is an implicit glorification of what remains. So if there are, in order to endeavor something, in order to achieve something, there are 5 endeavors. And somebody says, not by endeavor 1, 2, 3 or 4 can this be achieved. So the implicit understanding is that the 5th endeavor is the key to achieving that goal. So here Krishna is talking about what was the qualification to see his universal form. So he is saying that not by study of the Vedas, which means not by Gyan. Then he says not by performing sacrifices or charity or pious activities, which means not by karma. And then he says not by severe penances, which means not by yoga. So not by karma, not by gyan, not by yoga can I be seen. So what remains? Bhakti. So essentially what Krishna is saying, that only because of the component of bhakti that is present in a devotee is one acquiring the qualifications to see me in any form. Okay, so let's go to the next verse. Verse 49. Mate vithama cha vimuda bhavo drishva rupam ghoramidrinamamedam vyapetha bihi pritamanaha punastvam tad eva me rupamidam prapashya. You have been perturbed and bewildered by seeing this horrible feature of mine. Now let it be finished. My devotee, be free again from all disturbances. With a peaceful mind, you can now see the form you desire. So, even while Krishna was glorifying his universal form, so in the previous verse, he had mentioned how only those who have at least some aspect of bhakti and the mercy of the Lord become qualified to see that form. Krishna has said how that form is so special. But in this verse, he is recognizing that form, the fact that that form is bewildering to his devotee. So out of compassion he says, let that be finished. Be free from all disturbances. And now Krishna is ready to show his Manushya Rupa. Okay, let's go to the next verse. Verse 50. Sanjaya vacha ityarjunam vasudevas tyaktva swakam rupam darshayama shabhuya asvasayama sachabhitam menam Bhutva punaha somyavapur mahatma. Sanjay said to Dhritarashtra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, having spoken thus to Arjun, displayed his real 4-armed form and at last showed his 2-armed form, thus encouraging the fearful Arjun. So Krishna had promised in the previous verse that he will pacify the fear of Arjun and show the form that he was longing for. So here the verse Krishna shows 2 forms. One is Swakam Rupam. So Swakam Rupam is Krishna's personal form. So this represents Krishna's four-armed form. And then Soumya Vapur. So he also then again shows his Soumya Vapur is his beautiful form. That is the two-armed form. And Krishna shows it in the sequence to also indicate the dependencies. Because a higher form can show the lower form, not the other way around. So because the four-armed form is dependent on the two-armed form, then Krishna first shows the two-armed form and then the four-armed form and then the two-armed form. And similarly, because the Virat, the Vishwarupa, is the even lower form, so Krishna shows that and then the four-armed form and then the two-armed form. So another way to indicate that the two-armed form of Krishna is the origin of all forms. Next verse. Verse 51. Arjun vacha drishvedam anusham rupam tava somyam janardana idanim asmi samvratah sachetah prakritim gatah. When Arjun thus saw Krishna in his original form, he said, O Janardhan, seeing this human-like form so very beautiful, I am now composed in mind and I am restored to my original nature. So what was Arjun's original nature? He was a devotee of the personal form of Krishna. So seeing the universal form of Krishna, he was bewildered. But now seeing the personal form of Krishna, he is once again restored to his eternal relationship with the personal form of Krishna. So Arjun here refers to the form of Krishna as Manushyam Rupam. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he makes this point that one should not confuse Manushyam Rupam to say that Krishna is like a human being. All that it means is it is a human-like form. So Prabhupada says that if Krishna is like an ordinary human being, then how is it possible for him to show the universal form and then again show the four-handed Narayan form? So it is very clearly stated in Bhagavad-gita that one who thinks that Krishna is an ordinary person and one who misguides the reader by claiming that it is the impersonal Brahman within Krishna speaking is doing the greatest injustice. Krishna is actually shown his universal form and his two-handed Vishnu form. So how can he be an ordinary human being? A pure devotee is not confused by misguiding commentaries on Bhagavad-gita. So Srila Prabhupada here is referring to, and fortunately we are not confused by it by Prabhupada's mercy, but there are commentaries by impersonalists on this verse where they use this phrase to indicate that Krishna was Manushya. They say that Arjun is referring to Krishna as Manushya because Krishna was actually human. But the divinity of Krishna was the impersonal Brahman that was manifesting within him. So Prabhupada in this purport, he is strongly refuting such misleading commentaries. Next verse. Verse 52. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Sadurdasham Idam Rupam Drishtavan Asiyan Mama Devapyasya Rupasya Nityam Darshan Kangshanaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Arjun, this form of mine you are now seeing is very difficult to behold. Even the demigods are ever seeking the opportunity to see this form which is so dear. So if you remember, Krishna had used almost similar verbiage to describe the universal form. So one may say, what's the difference? Even the universal form you said is difficult to see, the demigods are always wanting to see. And now for the personal form also, you're making the same point that it is difficult to behold. But the difference is the degree of qualification. In order to see the universal form of Krishna, one needs some qualification. And Krishna had said some bhakti is needed. But in order to see Krishna's two-armed form, one needs to be a pure devotee. So the difference is the degree of devotion which qualifies one to see Krishna's two-armed form. Now one might say that everybody was seeing Krishna's two-armed form. He was there in the battlefield, the soldiers could see it, Duryodhana could see it. So where is this qualification coming from? And there is a difference between seeing Krishna and actually perceiving Krishna. So like one can go to the temple and see the idols on the altar. Or one could go to the temple and see the deities on the altar. The same object, but difference. And the difference comes in the devotion of the seeker. So in the Bhagavatam it is mentioned when Krishna entered the arena of Kamsa, different people saw Krishna in different ways according to their own moods. Kamsa saw Krishna as death personified. The wrestlers saw Krishna as contender for strength. The ladies saw Krishna as somebody beautiful. Devaki and Vasudeva saw him as their son. So different, as one approaches Krishna, Krishna manifests in that way. So even though Duryodhana and the soldiers in the battlefield were seeing Krishna, but because they did not have any faith in Krishna, they were simply seeing Krishna as another person. But the devotees, they are aspiring to see Krishna as Swayam Bhagavan. And that is what Krishna is saying is very, very difficult to see. Okay, next verse. Verse 53. Nam vede na tapasa na danena na chejyaya sakya evam vido drashtum drashtamanasimam yatha. The form you are seeing with your transcendental eyes cannot be understood simply by studying the Vedas, nor by undergoing serious penances, nor by charity, nor by worship. It is not by this means that one can see me as I am. So once again, this verse is almost identical to the to verse 48, where Krishna had talked about that how one cannot see me by giving in charity or performing penances. So what's the difference? And the difference again is the extent, the degree. So one can only see Krishna's universal form based on bhakti. And one can only see Krishna's two-armed form based on bhakti. But in order to see Krishna's two-armed form, one needs to be a pure devotee. So with a little bit of bhakti, one can attract the mercy of Krishna. And out of that mercy, Krishna will reveal his universal form. But one who is submerged in pure devotion, Ananya Bhakti, that person becomes qualified to see Krishna Swayam Bhagavan. So in the Brahma Samhita it is said, Premanjana Churuti Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sadeva Hrideshu Vilokayanti Yamashama Sundaram Achintaya Gunaswarupam Govindamadi Purusham Tamam Bhajami. That Lord Brahma says that Premanjana Churuti Bhakti Vilochanena, that when the eyes of the devotees are smeared with the love of Krishna, then they become qualified to see the form of Krishna. So here Krishna is glorifying that love that comes from pure devotion, by which Arjuna is qualified to see the two-armed form of Krishna. So Prabhupada says that for scholars who have simply studied Vedic literature by way of grammatical knowledge or mere academic qualifications, Krishna is not possible to understand, nor is he to be understood by persons who officially go to the temple to offer worship. They make their visit, but they cannot understand Krishna as he is. Krishna can only be understood through the path of pure devotional service, as explained by Krishna himself in the next verse. So we now go to verse 44. Verse 54. Bhaktya tvananyaya sakhya aham evam vidhorjuna jnatum drashtum cha tatvena pravashtum cha parantapa. My dear Arjun, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. So here Krishna is explicitly stating what he was implicitly speaking so far. So he says, Bhaktya tva ananyaya. So only by undivided devotional service. So here he is talking about pure devotional service. That one becomes qualified to see Krishna in his Manushya Rupam, in his human-like form. Only in this way can you enter. So if you see this word praveshtham, enter, then there are some other commentators that misinterpret this word as saying that you can enter into Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada, of course, he in his purport, he rejects that. He says the personal form of Krishna, the two-armed form and the four-armed form are completely different from the temporary universal form shown to Arjuna. The four-handed form are nine and the two-handed form of Krishna are eternal and transcendental, whereas the universal form expected to Arjuna is temporary. The very word Sudarshanam means difficult to see, suggests that no one had seen that universal form. It also suggests that amongst the devotees there is no necessities of showing it. The form was expected by Krishna at the request of Arjuna, so that in future when one represents himself as an incarnation of God, people can ask to see his universal form. Okay. Next verse is the last verse of the chapter, verse 55. Mat karma kran mat paramo mat bhakta sangavarjataha nirvaira sarva bhuteshu yasamamete pandava. My dear Arjun, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the contamination of the fruitive activities and mental speculation, he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life and who is friendly to every living being, he certainly comes to me. So in this concluding verse of the chapter, Krishna gives a general definition of bhakti. So we see that how Krishna, while satisfying the request of Arjuna, also very expertly guides him to the topic of devotional service. So he noted that with a little bit of devotional service, one became qualified to see his universal form. But only with pure devotional service can one become qualified to see Krishna's personal form. So here Krishna, in a general way, he talks about the various aspects of bhakti. So he says, he who acts for me, mat karma krat. So what are these actions? Devotional service, like cleaning the temple, serving the deities, taking care of tulasi. So these are the devotional activities. then who does not know any other goal except me. So mat parma, who considers me to be the only goal. So does not want to go to Brahman or to heavenly planets. Then what else? Mad Bhakta. Mad Bhakta means that he is engaged in the 9 processes of devotional service. And then Sangvarjita, that he does not tolerate associating with those who are opposed to Krishna. So he gives up the association of non-devotees. Then Nirvair Sarva Bhuteshu. So while he gives it up, he still does not envy them. He is still kind to them. So the difference in giving up association and being envious. So the devotees may not associate with those who are non-devotees, but nevertheless they are always magnanimous in guiding them to make spiritual progress. So such a person, Krishna says, attains me, no one else. So this verse is, so in the Bhagavad-gita, there are 10 verses that are considered to represent the essence of the topic of Bhagavad-gita. So there is the Chaturshloki that comes in the 10th chapter, verses 8, 9, 10 and 11. There is the Trishloki that will come in the 15th chapter, which is verses in chapter 15, 16, 17, 18. Then there is the Gita Rahasya, which is 1865, Manmanabhav Madbhakto. And there is the Charan Shloki, that is 1866, Sarvadharma Pratyajaya. And then there is the essence of spiritual endeavor, which is this verse, 1155. So if you look at this verse, this contains the essence of the advancement of a devotee. Right? So Krishna says, Mat Param, consider me as the supreme. What is that? Sambandhagya. Then Krishna says, Mad Bhakta, engage in my devotional service. Sangha Varjita, giving up all forms of contaminating associations. Nirvaira Sarva Bhuteshu, and giving up envy for everyone. What is this? Abhide. And then Krishna says, Yah Samam Eti, such a person attains me. So this is Prayojan. So essentially, this is what the Vedas talk about. Establishing a relationship with Krishna, Sambandha Gyan, acting in that relationship, devotional service, Abhidaya Gyan, and attaining the goal, Krishna, which is Prayojan. And we see that this verse, it summarizes these 3 forms of it. So this verse is also very similar to 1868, where Krishna will again, similarly, when Krishna is there, is also summarizing. So he once again summarizes the essence of Bhagavad-gita in 1868, which is a mirror verse to 1155. So with this we conclude the 11th chapter. Here we see that Krishna, he shows his form as Kal and Rupa, as the universal form and as time. He shows himself as the source of everything, the avatars, the devas. He shows himself as the cause of victory for his devotees. And he also encourages Arjuna to take to the path of devotion to attain real perfection. This is the meaning of this chapter. So with this, we will end the 11th chapter. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna.